Good afternoon, everybody. We'll just hang fire for a minute or two and let other people join the call. See the numbers slowly creeping up, so I'll make a start. I'm only doing introductions. So good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today. Today's webinar is titled Metaverse Learning, Unlocking Career Success, Exploring Transformative Learning Strategies. So I hope you're in the right place. Today we're joined by Rob Way from Newcastle College Group and Claire from Metaverse Learning. Before we make a start, I'll just do a couple of housekeeping points and then we'll jump straight into today's session. So unfortunately don't have camera and microphone access, so please do feel free to use the Q&A chats and the chat box should you have any questions throughout the session. We will schedule some time at the end to answer any questions that you do have. Just to let you know that we also have 2 active agreements with Metaverse Learning that are available via our License Subscriptions Manager catalogue page. The links to those are on the slides, but I'll also share those in the chats as well, should you wish to view those during the session. Today's agenda is after my short introduction, we'll go straight into Rob's presentation, and then we'll be followed by a demonstration from Claire of Metaverse Learning, and then we'll finish off with the Q&A at the end. So without further ado, I will pass over to Rob. I'll stop sharing my screen and you can jump straight into the session, Rob. Thank you very much.
Perfect, thank you. We'll just share that over. If you can let me know that you can see the screen, that'll be perfect, just to make sure.
Yeah,
excellent. Couple of notes, that's great. Hi everyone, thanks for taking the time out of your day to join this particular session around unlocking career success and looking at the mixed reality strategies that we've used across NCG to support teaching, learning, assessment. We are on a journey with this, and this journey, I can't see the end of it, and I doubt I very much will see the end of it, as you'll probably see through some of the slides that I've created today with some really interesting comments in there. I'm Rob Wraith. I'm Head of Learning Technology and Digital Learning for NCG. That is a group of 7 colleges, north, east, south, west around the UK. So we've got Newcastle College, Newcastle Sixth Form College, Carlisle College, West Lancashire College, Kidderminster College, Lewisham and Southwark as well. And we're looking to sort of make this transformative journey available across all of our colleges. I do have a LinkedIn profile. If you want to sort of find out what else we've been up to, please use the QR code down at the bottom as well, and that'll take you to LinkedIn directly. So to kind of paint a picture of what we do and to try and understand the concepts. I did something quite interesting to start. Well, I thought it was quite interesting anyway, to start this presentation off. So what is the perspective of this? So the Cambridge Dictionary definition of transformative is causing a major change to something or someone, especially in a way that makes it or them better. And the learning is the activity of obtaining knowledge. So I thought, well, why not ask ChatGPT what it thinks of? And I thought this was quite deep. Transformative learning is the process of experiencing a shift in consciousness that can be life-changing. It involves deep structural shifts in thinking, acting, and being, which creates a more integrative and holistic perspective. So that's how important the role that I have and the role we have as educators across all of our institutions have. It's something that can be life-changing and has deep structural shifts in thinking across the board. So how are we doing that in sort of collaboration with Metaverse Learning? Well, first I wanted to try and make sure that we not to kind of angle this at a too higher level without thinking about the full picture. I wanted to try and understand the concepts of what mixed reality is. There's a lot of sort of names and initials banded around the place on a daily basis, let alone monthly. So extended reality XR is a universe that contains both mixed reality, augmented reality, and virtual reality. And in order to understand what the mixed reality side of it is, for those of you who are unsure, it's a digital versus physical fusion between the two. So whatever you have mixed within your mixed reality is then put in alongside what you can actually see in front of you. So you can bring in certain elements of a 3D model of a sofa, or you see these things on sofa shops. There's plenty of them around, where you can actually use an app to put a piece of furniture in your own home. That's what we're looking at with augmented reality and that term mixed reality. So, like the types of mixed reality that we have, augmented reality is the position digital objects within the real world. And then mixed reality is utilised in various industries, which I'm sure we're familiar with. I'm just giving you an example of one, but also such as healthcare, education and entertainment. So the benefits of using mixed reality within career development and within education. So we have immersive learning, we have the skill enhancement, and we have the option to be able to have global collaboration, easy for me to say. That gives us the immersive learning, gives the experience of understanding through interaction, and interaction in simulations that you wouldn't ordinarily have access to, and whether that be down to health and safety requirements, the cost of taking students onto or employees onto a construction site, or within a nursing ward or something like that. That can then help the skills enhancement, so you can develop those practical skills on a regular basis in that simulated environment, but get feedback from those as well. So no risk is being taken, whether that be personally or with others. And then you can practice, you can refine your skills, and depending on the environment that you're on or the access that you have, you could do that whether you're at college, whether you're at work, or whether you're at home, in order to really build your skills up, and probably more importantly, the confidence that you have in completing a particular task. Now that resonates really strongly with me because of what we want to try and do for our students, the experience we want to provide our students with. And the geographical barriers that foster collaboration amongst teams as well. But you have virtual workspaces that you could work in, but also you could explore places in other countries, that you couldn't ordinarily get to see what it would be like to be in those environments. And that then can enable you to come up with newer, fresher ideas that you could share across your particular education establishment or industry. So we've got a couple of case studies or points towards case studies that are in order to I guess to probably cement what I've been talking about there a little bit. So medical education, corporate training, in architectural design, and also within the entertainment industry. So you can see it's a real eclectic mix across the board as to where this particular resource can fit into, and it's only going to get bigger. It's only become more progressive in its growth. So we've seen it in the news based around medical education, the medical side of things in that medical education example. So simulations of complex surgeries for hands-on training, and like I mentioned before, with some of the visits that you could have for employees or for students, it reduces that risk for real patients, but gives them that real sort of clear-cut opportunity, no pun intended, sorry, that clear sort of example of how you could use that. Corporate training, against immersive scenarios to practice decision making and crisis management in a safe environment. So it could be anything really. It could be a real confrontational situation. It could be customer service. So you have a really angry or an aggressive customer who's sort of in your face, not happy with the service that they've received, and you can then sort of deal with that situation and how you feel in a more protected environment. And then we have the likes of the architectural design. So the BIM is a very big thing across construction and architecture, has been for a number of years. But being able to design a building and rotate around that and look at how it can be positioned within a particular environment. If we use mixed reality and we have a full model of a house or a garage or an extension that you're going to build on your house, you could then look at that before a brick or any foundation has been put in place to see what that would actually look like in the context of your own house and garden and everything else. And then we can look at that again on a much bigger scale as well. And then again, like we say, the entertainment industry, the interactive storytelling and the gaming experiences that I'm sure some of us are familiar with, but then also we've seen those in the news as well. So from my point of view, and specifically from my point of view, the idea of incorporating mixed reality within learning is a starting place in order for that to start to be brought into industry, to then flourish within industry and become part of the norm in that respect as well. But in order to do that, we need to take a couple of things. I'm talking about some great, fantastic examples of how mixed reality, augmented reality and virtual reality can be brought into everyday life, to be brought into education, to be brought into industry. But how do we do that? How do we think about how this can work, and how we can get confidence built up, and how we can start to build on this and make it more part of the norm? First off, we've got to look at engagement. So these scenarios that we have here, and we don't want to, across NCG, we don't want scenarios that are just brought in just to say that, oh, well, we've got mixed reality in learning, we use it. If we don't have relevant scenarios within there, we'll not have engagement. And then we end up with very expensive pieces of equipment that gather a lot of dust. And we don't want that to be the case. It needs to be able to captivate and motivate learners to want to come back, to do more, to learn. And we need to be able to adapt these. So we need to be able to adapt these to different learning styles, and those customizable experiences will encourage the engagement of the learner so that they're not excluded from anything. So examples that we have from that across sort of NCG in order to be able to support that are, we have both virtual environments, which are, you'll see a couple of those in a moment, are that gameplay. So what is commonly known as first-person shooter gameplay, where you can wander around as that person within the room and see what's in and around you. But we also have the opportunity of having the virtual reality scenarios as well, where students can put on a headset and be immersed within that room. Now, following the research that we've done and the conversations that we've had with students, some are uncomfortable with putting headsets on, that they become very disorientated, and some aren't comfortable with putting a headset on at all, just purely because they don't want to be wearing other headsets that other students have used. And we've got to take that into consideration. And to have both a virtual environment and a virtual reality environment gives us the option of being adaptable, and also go back to something that I mentioned earlier on, based around that accessibility. So students can perform a particular task within the confines of their classroom and have a lecturing member of staff there supporting them, or a peer. And if they're unsure of something, they may not be comfortable enough to ask what they've done wrong, or what they need to do next, or if they've done it right or wrong. And within that, they can go home, they can use the tools that we've got, or we've been provided with, we've purchased from Metaverse Learning, and those students are able to go home and use those devices, use those resources on any device that they have. So whether that be a mobile, whether that be a laptop or otherwise, they can go back and maybe find out for themselves. We had an example of that, where plastering students at Carlisle we were the first college that started to utilise and adopt these resources. And a student had done a practical example of plastering the wall, put the plaster boards on. Those plaster boards were put on, and I'm not trying to profess that I know exactly what I'm talking about here because I'm not a plasterer at all. How many centimetres they needed to leave at the bottom for skirting. And it was either 15 or 17 centimetres, and the student couldn't remember. So what they did was they went back home and used the virtual environment resources to work through that particular process again, and found out that it was 15 centimetres room they needed to leave at the bottom of the plasterboard when they put the plasterboard on. And that then enabled that student to take ownership of their own learning, not feeling that they had to go chasing around, but they were engaged by that process, those resources. We were able to adapt it because it was able to put it onto their own machine at home. They didn't have to wait until they came back home, which then leads me on to the point of efficiency. That is efficient learning, and the students have then owned that learning journey. So we're able to optimize the time that they spend using or studying for a particular subject to give them the confidence to be able to do it. So we are then able, if the student is really struggling with that, we then are able to focus on particular elements of the learning that the students maybe not too sure of or can't find the answer for, and they can do those practical pieces on a more regular basis. So in a nutshell, 3 pointers of engagement, adaptability and efficiency in order to make this particular process work. So proof is in the pudding, as we would say, and you look at the strategies that we've incorporated in there. Now, in order to kind of recap in true teacher style, is we've purchased a Metaverse learning resources. We're looking to enhance that learning environment. We're looking to enhance that learning experience and looking to really increase the engagement of the students. If we increase the engagement of the students, we also increase the attendance, and then with the hope of the attendance being increased, we then increase the outcomes that happen with that. But in order for us to be able to deliver that to our students and make that accessible, we've had to make and develop things in a slightly different way. So those of you who maybe or maybe aware, is NCG is a Microsoft house. We use Microsoft Teams solely as our learning environment. We don't have any other integrations in there. And in order to be able to deliver the resources that we have, we've used Teams and then SharePoint that sits within Teams. So you'll see on the image on the left-hand side that we have a standard Teams site that's rolled out. And on the left hand, we've got the access to the channels, and the resources are then within those channels. The SharePoint page is loaded up within there, and you can see just on this image, the images that are here, we've got options to access the resources. And that makes it a one-stop shop, as it were, for those students to be able to come in, to be able to have a look at the team site. They're familiar with it because we're using that as the one sort of portal that we use. They're not having to go outside elsewhere, anywhere else, and then we access those resources. We use a score player in order to provide us with that information, in order to play the digital learning content that we have, and that's Go On. And that provides us with records, which I'll show you in a second, of achievement and who's done what, where, and when. But on the right-hand side, this is the virtual environments that we have available that you can see. And again, Claire will be providing a much better demonstration than I'll show you on here of what those virtual environments look like. But you'll be able to walk through that. The students are able to, and staff are able to guide their way through those environments and interact with the resources and the options that are in there. And the image that's in the center of that screen is the element of bringing augmented reality in. Now, as much as I can sit here and I can talk about virtual reality, mixed reality, augmented reality, and all the magical things that we can put in there, there'll be a lot of people who I have spoken to and I'll speak to again in the future who will be baffled by all of the science that I'm trying to talk about and encourage them. So what we do is we're keeping the environments that we've got as familiar as possible across NCG. We're then bringing in small sections of new technology in order for the students to become familiar with it, the staff to become familiar with it and not be frightened of it. So the learning environment, which is Teams, which we've used for a number of years now, SharePoint attached into Microsoft Teams, so there's no difference or strange transition between learning environments or anything like that. We then have an interactive virtual environment the students can go in with, where the majority or a majority of students will be familiar with this type of layout, because we can't presume that all will be, because they won't be. And then we have an option of using QR codes, which again, some people are familiar with and some people will be comfortable with using, to then provide the middle screen where we've got options of looking at an engineering block. For this particular example, a red brick and a foundation block. That image is taken from my mobile device, screenshot from that, to the next to the cabinet, which is just sitting down on my left-hand side over here on the floor. So I've been able to bring that education and that innovation in technology to life in a very short space of time. But we then need to help staff and students become familiar with that and move on. I appreciate there may be questions as I am chuntering on, and I'll check the chat out at some point. If there are any questions, I'm happy to come back. There'll be plenty of time to answer those. So I do appreciate I'm sort of steamrolling through these. So with that, I'm going to go back because I used that. So rounding all of those bits out, we've got Teams as a learning environment, we've got SharePoint sat within that, and then we've got the virtual environment that's accessible via Go1. I've then been able to scan a QR code within the virtual environment, which has then enabled me to bring in mixed reality or augmented reality into my own room in here. That's enabled me to walk around those engineering blocks and have something that's a full size, something that I wouldn't ordinarily be able to do, but I've been able to bring that into the office, the home, or wherever. I mentioned before about it's great, and again, magical things that we can bring in. We've got the technology. We've got to work out how we do that. We've got to take a slow approach to encouraging staff to build a confidence and the students with using this technology. But looking again at some of the other examples, one of the most important things is to see what value we get out of that and what assessments students can do within there in order to guide their own learning, to review their own learning and reflect on their progress, but also for us to be able to measure whether the incorporation of the metaverse learning resources in one, but also mixed augmented reality, virtual reality is worth the cost that we pay for that. Looking at the screen or the image rather on the left hand side, you'll see this is another example of a virtual environment, which again you have access to, or if you purchase, you have access to as a virtual reality environment as well. The students can staff and students can walk around and have a look and see where any issues are or what faults need to be fixed. As part of those, you have the option of being able to interact with the customer, the owner of the house when you go in. This is plumbing and gas, as you probably can see, because it says there in the middle of the screen. Is that you can then interact, so you have elements of not just doing plumbing and gas, but actually that customer service element. And if you're immersed within that environment, that's not an environment that we can ordinarily provide as an educational establishment in any sort of learning. You have to have people act the scenario out, where you can do these on as and when on a regular basis as much as you want. And whether the students work through this particular program, they can then select the correct or look to select the correct answers, and we can then review their progress. The image on the top right of that screen you'll then see is an area where you have the questions that are specified within the packages that you purchase. So these have been reviewed by consortia with Metaverse Learning, and they are aligned to this particular process and can be done as well as in addition to the delivery that you have in your own curriculum against your particular awarding body, and support students that way. I mentioned we get results out of the packages that we have in there, but we also, as an addition really for us, you'll see that on the image in the middle, this is where we utilize Goal 1 specifically. So purchasing the digital learning content, we can then monitor the resources that we have within the virtual environment, top right-hand corner, because we get the report out as to what the students answered right, wrong, or otherwise. The digital learning packages that we also have as part of this, so what would be known as your e-learning content with the theory that's in there, we package those up in such a way that we can then see who started it, when they've started it, whether they've passed it, and or whether they failed it. So we then get more of a detailed description for each student as to what their specific progress is. And when we have observations, we want to review the students' progress over time, we can then pick out which areas we may need to focus on particularly or specifically. A little bit like the example that I provided before with Carlisle and the student who wasn't sure. There may be half a dozen of those students who weren't sure what the distance was between the two. So that will then direct my teaching for the next couple of weeks in order to make sure we focus on that and the students remember that across the board. So we're then able to pull reports out of this, and then we can gather those reports and see that distance travelled over time from starting these particular packages, building the confidence with the staff to embed those within the curriculum, which is another point I'll come on to in a second, and look at where we need to focus those particular learning for our students to be achieving, but then also have the confidence when they go into an interview or are lucky enough to get a job in their chosen field, they have the confidence to be able to talk about the right things that they need to. So with that, looking at kind of rounding all of the magical bits up that are in there, there are challenges with this. I'm not naive to it. The resources that we have for Metaverse learning are exceptionally good. They work, they're accessible, and they do what we want to do, which is why we've gone down that path. But we need to be able to look at how we can embed those within the colleges, build not just the colleges and build the confidence with the staff and students, but how does that fit in with the curriculum delivery? Are we going to be doing this every week? Are we going to be doing this every other week? I wouldn't recommend that you do it every week. You could do the digital learning content in there. But if you have virtual environments or virtual reality, you may want to mix that up a little bit and do those at different times or at specific times. So with that, there's technological integration. We need to consider that. Integrate mixed reality tools within existing systems in the infrastructure. We've looked at what we currently have in place and how these resources will fit around what we do. The virtual environments are definitely a definite for us, because then, like I said earlier on, that made it accessible for everybody across the board. We didn't then have to think about, well, okay, we need 1,001 headsets, we need to manage those, we need to do and all of the rest of it. We're in the process of purchasing headsets and then looking to manage those headsets moving forward so that we have a holistic an overall view of what they're being used for across the board. And those students, when we have them out there who wish to use them and are comfortable using them, as well as our teaching staff can use them, but if they'd rather stick with the virtual environments, they can. That there's no difference to that learning for them if they choose to go down that route. Training and support, of providing comprehensive training for users and technical support for implementation, where we plan that across the academic year, and we don't just do, we're not just front loaded. So we're not going to just look at go, right, okay, roll them out, headsets are out, that's it, a couple of weeks training, job done. Those of you who obviously in education and certainly within technology, within education, will appreciate that it's a movable feast, and things are updated, things change, and things are developed more and more. We have staff turnover. as all colleges and companies and industry do, and we need to maintain that level of understanding and implementation across the curriculum. But we also, as part of that training support, need to review that training support as to how well it's doing, how well it's being adopted, and then able to see, well, actually, we then become the teachers to see what areas aren't working as well, and how could we make them work better. And then obviously the cost and the resources. I'm not naive, these things do cost money, and there are various different funding streams, pots, and budgets that are available in order to purchase those. But addressing this investment requires the resource allocation for a sustainable adoption. So I mean by that is that we can purchase the resources that are in there, and we don't want them just to, we as NCG don't want them just to be okay, well, it did all right for 23, 24, but it's now out of date, we can't use it, and then it becomes a very expensive dust collector, because we haven't been able to seem to plan the longevity of this moving forward. So that is something which is, again, a bit of a movable feast, but we will look to try and see what things we can do in order to make this sustainable, because mixed reality, augmented reality, virtual reality isn't going away, and we want to prepare our students for the future and the adoption of these technologies across the board. So tying those bits up, a couple of interesting points. I didn't want to baffle everybody with loads of different facts and figures, but in order to sort of pull all of that information together and the journey that we've been on, and the reason why we've been on this journey and why we're still on it, is those future trends and advancements that we have with mixed reality across the board. So according to Microsoft, immersive technology increases engagement and retention by 35%, whilst improving scores by 22%. So that's an impressive percentage of improvement, bringing in immersive technology and the likes of mixed reality. But also a very poignant point, in my opinion, is that using mixed reality, social and emotional learning barriers are removed, so students can experience life from new perspectives. So they have the ability to build their own confidence in particular environments, or get to know the unknown as to what they may be interested in and what they're potentially capable of. So that opens up a whole new world of education and a direction and guidance for careers development as to where students, or what potential students, want to do moving forward. But with that comes the market size worldwide and what it could potentially be, or it's predicted to be, by 2026, and that's $100 billion. So it's anticipated the market expansion as mixed reality becomes more integrated into professional landscapes. So that's the bit where industry are looking to adopt this more and more. Students would need to then be more familiar with it, because that enables them to be work ready as to what they need to consider, not just being able to use, and I'm not dismissing it by any stretch, but Microsoft packages or any other pieces of specialist software. This is going to become more of the norm, and what students are expected to do moving forward, and not just for gameplay, for actually solving complex, detailed problems of a real scenario. So that global extended reality market that includes augmented and mixed reality, it reached $29.26 billion in 2022, and it's going to rise to over $100 billion by 2026. And those, I've got the links on the bottom of there. I'm sure we'll share the slide deck with you all in order to look into those further. But just a little bit of food for thought based on those. So I'm going to round that bit up. I'm now going to hand over to Claire for the demonstration. So Claire's the Customer Success Manager for Metaverse Learning. I shall stop sharing and I'll pass that over, and then I'm sure we'll have questions to answer at the end of that. So over to you, Claire.
Thanks, Rob. Good afternoon, everybody. As Rob says, I'm Claire from Metaverse Learning. I'm the Customer Success Manager. I currently work for Metaverse Learning and Metaverse Hub. So there's a number of different platforms and solutions we actually provide to our customers. Hopefully all of you know who Metaverse Learning are by now, but for those of you who don't, Metaverse Learning are a global leader, and we work in collaboration to co-create immersive learning content across industry and education. So I'll just go into a quick demonstration today for you, and just in the interest of continuity, I'll go into the plumbing and gas programme for you, and it just hopefully will give you a little idea of what our programmes look like and what we can really do with them. So hopefully you can see my screen. Can you just let me know, Rob?
Yep, spot on.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is just a snapshot here of our library of some of the programmes that we've put together. We do have many, many more, and currently a lot more in the pipeline, such as SEND and ESOL's just been created. But what I'll do is I'll just go into our plumbing and gas programme, and I'll just show you sort of behind the scenes of what that looks like. So these are some of our programme partners. So that means these are the guys that have actually put the content together with us to make sure that we're in line with curriculum, the right occupational standards, and basically that we're getting all of the right information and content out there to the learners and to the education providers. What you'll get when you purchase one of these programmes is obviously the licence to access. And as Rob's already talked through, there's two different ways you can access those. One is called virtual environment, which means you can access all of this content through your computer or tablet. And the other is your virtual reality, which is what you'll see with the goggles, so your Oculus Quests, for example. You'll also get a trainer's guide, which is what the education providers can actually refer to look at the curriculum, the learning outcomes, the aims, the objectives, that kind of thing. And you'll get a breakdown basically of everything that's contained within that programme, so that you don't have to do those programmes continuously. You can do all of the knowledge if you wanted to, and then you can use these programmes as kind of a vocational practice that students can go back into. As Rob mentioned earlier with the example of the plastering student, that's where these programmes really come in handy, where students can go back and look at those practical elements without having to leave their bedroom or the classroom or wherever they might be at the time. It's something that they can keep revisiting over and over again with no cost or no travel, or, you know, it's a safer working environment. So if I just take you back to the programme, what I'll do for the moment is I'll just take you into the video of what this programme looks like, because I'd just like to explain to you, sorry, I'll just turn that sound down, how it actually looks before I go into a live environment. So what you'll see here typically is an environment obviously relevant to that programme. So on this particular programme here, we're seeing somebody's home, and the learner will need to enter this home, and they'll be given various different tasks throughout the programme for them to go and visit and answer. So what you're seeing here is some multiple choice questions. The student at the bottom here will be given a task. They'll need to go and follow and seek out the information. So what you don't see here, which I'll show you in the live environment, is that the learners have to go and seek the information out. So this is obviously a lot quicker. This is a video of a video. But these questions here are score compatible. So what that means, and as Rob touched on earlier, is that all of this information will go into your learning management system. And that means that you can have a progress checker or a benchmark for each student before, during and after their course, just to see what sort of knowledge they've retained or learnt, hopefully learnt. And the idea is that each time the student goes back into these programmes, they get more and more positive results. What you probably don't see here at the moment is you do get an instantaneous result as well. So if I picked one of these answers, it's actually telling me to pick two here, and I got them wrong. It tells me that I've got them wrong at the side, and it will also tell me why. So there you go, it does tell you there. So again, then you'll need to go into a different scenario, and it will show you various different things or components that you need to go through. This particular video here is showing you you need to go and hand over to the customer. So again, it's not just about those practical skills within the programs, it's also about the soft skills that you might develop and that you might need. There's a lot of students that do struggle with how they would talk to a customer or even colleagues at times. So this is also practice of what to expect, the kind of questions you might ask, and what to look for when you go and speak to a customer. So again, this is in a different scenario, and it's given you quite a lot of different information here. So when you go into any of the environments, you'll be met with an interactive symbol like this, and that is where the student needs to go and seek out the information. This is the same view for virtual reality goggles or headsets as you would see in the virtual environment. So you would walk up to one of these, you would click on it, and you would be given the questions or the information. And there you go. And it will zoom into certain things as well for you to show you what you need to be looking for. So it really does assist you with what you need to be sort of seeking out. Okay, so this is the view that you would see of any of our programs when you've completed them. You'll get an overall score here. So as you can see, the students actually done quite well. They've got 93%. And what they can then do at the end is they can really go down into those breakdown areas of which areas they might have got right and which ones they've got wrong. And they can revisit those until they get 100% for each of those scenarios, basically. And that's the idea. We want to improve knowledge, skills, and confidence for each of the learners. So what I'll do now is I'll just go into a live environment quickly. So I just want to show you what you would actually see if you log on via computer. So you'll always be met with this screen here, and that will always show you the controls, and it will always show you the program partners as well, or the companies that have had a hand in making these. So as you can see, there's quite a few different colleges on here, along with some industry on there as well. You'll then be shown the controls. So for any gaming students, they'll be really familiar with these keys. They can use the keyboard to move around. For people like me, I like to use the mouse, so I would navigate using the mouse. I've also turned the sound off for this at the moment, because what you also get with these programs is an immersive sound. So you'll hear the birds in the background, you'll hear noises going on, and again it just adds to that sort of realistic and immersive experience for the learners of what they might expect. So as you can see here, it's telling me that I need to go and arrive at the property. And again, unlike a lot of VR solutions, the learner has full reign to move around, so you can look up and down, you can really explore. And as I mentioned from the video in the previous video that I showed you, you need to seek out any interactive symbols. So I'm going to go over here. It's telling me to arrive at the property. And it's also given me a warning here to consider lone working. So there's a lot of health and safety information contained within there as well. So again, select 4 answers. I'm just going to guess. I don't think I'd make a very good plumber. And there we go. It's told me straight away that I've got one question wrong there. And again, the information is presented in a slightly different way, which we try to incorporate through all of the programs so that they're a little bit more engaging, and they're not, the learner won't get disengaged or anything. It's different presentations. So it's telling me I need to select 6 answers here and submit. And there you go. There's a couple of wrong answers there. And now I need to ring the doorbell. Okay, and what you can't hear at the moment is it's the person actually speaking to the customer. It's also got subtitles on there as well, so you can actually see what the words are. So a little bit more accessibility for you. And it's just giving us slightly more information, or the learners more information about what they need to look for, the kind of questions they need to ask. Okay. What we would also have in these environments are, again, what Rob touched on earlier, is the augmented reality QR codes. So for some of our scenarios, the student or the learner would be able to scan those QR codes, and it would show them real life examples of either tools, equipment they might need, or for example, in some of the health and social care programs that we have, it would take you off to external websites like NHS England, and basically give the learner even more information that they can access just from one environment. So it's now telling me to do a virtual risk assessment in the hallway. And again, I've got 4 answers. I'm just going to click through here. So again, at the bottom left screen, it's telling me that this can be found in the garage. You can actually see the interactive symbol there, which does kind of mislead a lot of students, but actually they are orange, and it would tell me that I actually do need to go and find that information out. So I can look all around the house and I can walk around. So I personally think that adds a lot more to the programs. It's not just presented in front of you. You do actually have to go and find the information out yourself. So I'm just going outside. And again, there we go. So there's the symbol that I'm looking for. And again, I need to click on that. And it's asking me to submit 4 different answers there. And again, you'll get different information presented. So it's now showing me that I need to look around. I need to inspect that area. So before the students even left the classroom, they're being shown things like this. They might not necessarily get the chance to explore. You know, obviously, someone put in the chat early, there's different ways you can get that information, but this is a real sort of connected way to look at all of the data together, all of the information. You know, there's those external links, and it's a little bit more realistic. So again, I won't go through this whole program. It's about 2 hours long. You can take your time. The learner can really look around. You can go where you want to. You're not bound by any jump spots like most of the VR platforms are. And it should be really intuitive for anybody to follow, and more importantly, accessible. So unless anyone's got any other questions, I'll leave this here for today. If you want any more information at all, you're more than welcome to get in touch with me or Rob, and I'll more than happy go through another demo with you or show you some of our other programs in our full library. And yeah, thank you. I'll hand back over to Rob now.
Brilliant, Claire. Thank you. Jenny, just before you came in, I was just going to round up, if that was all right, just to sort of close things down, and we'll have a couple of minutes and then 10 minutes, I guess, for any questions if there are any in there. I do hope that you found that useful and informative. Again, just for true teacher style from my side of things, the conclusion and the reflection for us is just the person looking at the way we can embed this type of technology will enhance the learning experience. It'll provide a personalised learning experience. You do have differentiated learning, but you have customised learning experiences that can be tailored within the delivery. The global accessibility point that I mentioned before, it does have the opportunity to open up experiences, certainly across our group of 7 colleges and share and looking at those resources. The innovation catalyst as well, that mixed reality as a catalyst for innovation and where things could potentially go, and being able to speak to colleagues. We do it on a regular basis, speak to colleagues on Teams. We're delivering this session on Teams. There's the ability then to use that mixed reality scenario to look at 3D models within a particular room and where that could go to, which then leads on to that continuous evolution and where, based on the market share that they kind of mentioned before, as to where that sustained professional growth and success could potentially see us going in the future. So other than that, that is it. Jenny, I hope that was useful and informative and interesting, obviously, but I'll hand back over to you.
Brilliant. Claire, Rob, thank you so much for your time today. We do have a couple of questions just dotted around in the chat. So the first one will be for you, Claire, from Andrew, who's just wanting to know a little bit more about the scenario. He's asked that if the scenario asks for ID at the door, I think he just wanted to know a little bit further details about certain elements of that scenario.
Yep, it does. So specifically in the plumbing and gas environment, there is, I think I went into scenario 3 just for the ease of demo today, but in scenario 1, it does ask for identification at the door, and you basically, you present yourself to the customer and you say who you are and where you're from. So we do have those safety elements in there, yeah.
If anyone has any more questions for this, for Rob or for Claire, do feel free to pop them in the chat now. We do have one from Laura, who's asked, once purchased, can this be used within a 360 immersive suite virtual environment? So I think it's like the whole immersive scope, isn't it? So is it just tailored to the VR headsets and the computer environment? So Claire, I think that's one's for you as well. And I don't know if Rob, if you've ever used the immersive 360 suites. Yeah, I'll leave that with both of you.
So yeah, basically we have integrated with a couple of the immersive rooms at the moment. So yeah, it's, if you want a conversation about it, please do get in touch. There's a couple that we have tested the programs on, and we're in the process of making them more accessible for some of the other immersive rooms. It just depends which ones people have at the moment. So it's something that we're in the process of developing further at the moment.
No further questions coming through at the moment, so just sort of while we've evolved, one's cut through now. So do you have med ed level clinical skills scenarios? I think that's another one for you, Claire.
Sorry, can you just say that again?
Do you have med ed level clinical skills scenarios?
We've got some nursing programs at the moment. I know that we've got some being produced at the moment for a university, so the levels are slightly higher in those. They're not available just yet, but I know they're in the process of being built as well.
And to go back to the immersive rooms, which immersive rooms are you working with at the moment? I think that's the one for you, Claire.
We're currently working with Igloo, iImmersive, BT, and there's probably a few others that I'm not aware of. I know we've got quite a large developer team at the moment, so I can double check on that and get back to you if there's any particular ones you want to have a look at.
Have you ever thought about using immersive rooms, Rob? Is that something that's on the agenda at Newcastle College Group, or are you sticking with the headsets for the time being?
Yeah, they are, and I think it's one of those where we need to focus on the space allocation of it. If I can get to a situation where we've got enough engagement and we see those sort of retention figures starting to increase, then we can justify looking and going down the immersive room route, because rooms and buildings do cost a lot of money to run, and what I don't want is to, again, just have a room which is solely for that purpose. We need to have a real good buy-in with the staff, so we can have students in there every day, every hour, or every week, to be fair. That's the dream. I know that's not practical, but so in short, yeah, we are looking into it, but I think we're taking initial steps to bringing in technology within the curriculums, because that's going to have to change significantly how the delivery of it's not just chalk and talk or workbooks, exercise books. And I know I'm going the extreme here, but it's a big shift with EdTech, and I want to make sure we do that, we can do that right, and staff have confidence and belief in using it, and then they own it themselves. Because once upon a time, we used to have overhead projectors back in the day, and they've all disappeared, and everybody's very confident using PowerPoint to present. So that's me comparison. So that's where I'm going with.
Yeah, and I would just add on that for people to be mindful when they are purchasing hardware, to consider what software they'll actually put in there. That's quite a big consideration that sometimes people might forget about.
Thank you, Claire. A follow-up question for you, Rob. What is the student feedback on the headsets like? But do you have any feedback from students that you can share on this?
The students enjoyed this. So what we have is we trialed them before we purchased the virtual reality resources from Metaverse. So we had another company that we were working with in order to trial it in sport and uniform public services. And that was to do crime scenes. And the crime scenes that they've done, they've thoroughly enjoyed, because they've been immersed in that room. And you can imagine the cost to try to set up a crime scene and and a room that was needed to do it. The students, when I spoke to them, which gave us the confidence to go down and purchase some more virtual reality resources, was that they got so much out of it because they were able to go back over and do the same thing again. It wasn't that they had to leave the room and then the member of staff had to come back and reset everything again. They could kind of all but rewind, and the ability to be able to capture that functionality as well. And as part of the Metaverse resources that we've purchased, we're looking to help out with this kind of the staff view of that, so we can actually monitor and engage where the students are moving to, what they're doing, and get a bit more of analysis out of it. But the students really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I think we've just got one final question from Andrew. I think this one's for you, Claire. You know, this is the kind of collection of scenarios that you had during the beginning of your session. Do you have a link to this that you can share with Andrew or share in the chat?
Yep, definitely. I can either put it in the chat or you can get in touch. On our website, there's a full catalogue of programmes. You should be able to see what's coming next as well. But if not, I will put a link to the brochure in the chat so that everybody can access if they need to.
Brilliant, thank you. And I think it's also important to mention we do have the trial access set up through Jisc. So should you wish to trial this product, you are able to request this through the license subscriptions management portal, and this will give you a 30-day free trial. So if you use the links that I shared earlier in the chat, you're able to request this directly through the license subscriptions manager. So I can't see any further questions coming through at the moment, so I think we'll be able to wrap up at this stage. So Rob, Claire, thank you so much for your time today. It's been really interesting to hear this session, and thank you everyone for your engagement and your questions. Should you have any further questions, we are able to take those offline as well, so do feel free to contact me directly, and Rob and Claire as well. Just fire your questions away if any come up in the next few hours. The recording of the session will be shared via the events page, probably in a couple of weeks. And yeah, I think that's all from us at the moment. So thank you very much for attending. I hope this session's been useful, and I hope to see you all again shortly.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Claire. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.